Early Friday morning on December 14th, 2012, a lone gunman walked into Sandy Hook Elementary and indiscriminately distinguished 26 lives. The chance to grow old and live out dreams was taken away from these children, and husbands and wives were taken away from their families. This monstrous act was then blamed primarily on video games. An entertainment product supposedly led a monster to such unforgivable desires. Believing that simplicity in entertainment can be the leading cause of remorseless actions is the wrong way to try and better a broken individual, leading me to defend video games. I'd like to think none of us has taken to destroying anyone's life. And although I play video games, violent or otherwise, I have not felt the need to hurt anyone around me. My father and his 9 brothers and sisters worked tirelessly to save their family from poverty and homelessness with an abusive father on their back. Even with all the violence, my father taught me everything he could, including his love of video games, and neither of us have taken to harming anyone. So I'd like to suggest another way of thinking, one that leads away from blaming video games for violence by explaining what's been blamed before them, what might actually lead to these actions, and what wonderful things video games have contributed to since their creation. The media has taken to blaming other entertainment products in the past, so I'd like to start out here and explain how they fit into our lives today. To begin, I'll start with rock and roll, which in the 1950s was supposedly the leading cause of violence and sexual acts among our young. Not only that, but it was the cause for an alleged riot that broke out during a concert at the Boston Arena in 1958. Now there are at least 80 different rock and roll shows going on all throughout Massachusetts in just the month of October. The second largest scapegoat to violence happens to be comic books. A book reviewer in the 40s, Sterling North, once warned that unless we want a coming generation even more ferocious than the present one, America must band together to break the comic magazine, Corville, no date. And even though the highest grossing film franchise happens to be based off of the Marvel Comics, Nicholson 2014, there was a time when people joined a cause to gather comic books for the sole purpose of burning them in 1948. Currently, a violent video game named GTA 5 has the highest generated revenue in 24 hours. Yet with all these sales, I have yet to see a spike in mass murderers. So I'd like to address what might actually be causing these violent outbursts. A Secret Service report from 2004 on school shootings found that 12% of all attackers had an interest in violent video games. But even more interesting is that 78% of them had tried or thought about committing suicide before their attack began. Even then, only 34% had ever been evaluated concerning mental health. Valsekil et al. 2004. So 32 out of the 41 attackers had shown signs of mental health issues, but only 14 were ever glanced at professionally. This leads me to believe that mental disorders are a large contributor to violence, and that video games do not necessarily instigate it. And with these mentally disturbed, it turns out 68% of these attackers had unguarded weapons in their home or close by with family members. Valsekil et al. 2004. These terrifying facts show that not only are mentally ill not being evaluated and cared for correctly, but gun owners are not securing their weapons responsibly. After looking through the horrors on gun control and mental disorders in our youth, it will be refreshing to end off knowing that video games, while wrongly persecuted, can actually help our young in many different ways. To begin, one particular cognitive benefit of video games is how they help motivational skills. A study in the American Psychologist Journal from 2014 has found that gaming environments may actually cultivate a persistent, optimistic motivational style. Granick, Lobel, and Engels, 2014. With further development and study, you can imagine how specifically created video games can be implemented to help our young learn to better push forward in school or in life when things get rough. And finally, video games have been shown to help children suffering depression. Imagine if that 78% of distraught school shooters had been given a game called Sparks that has been proven to help children completely recover from depression. And in fact, Early testing has found that 44% of the 84 children given Sparks as treatment have recovered from depression, while only 26% of the 84 have, while only 26 of the 84% have, when given the normal one-on-one counseling we mainly see today. Mary et al. 2012. With all that in mind, I'd like to close out with a thought. Have we, as a society, continued to repeat our history and overlook the true dangers that are right in front of our eyes? Can we truly look back on our past and continue our current tradition of blaming a new and upcoming genre of entertainment? I personally think it's time to move past scapegoating and focus on the main issue, which happens to be people. We need to look at what we can do to help mentally ill individuals and learn to keep a tighter grip on weapons in general. And finally, we should learn to embrace video games for their benefits and not cast them out due to their appearance in dangerous people's lives. In truth, we can no longer help those who have been harmed by monstrous people. But I suggest we use what we know now to end the misguided witch hunts against video games, and spend our time trying to better help those around us first. In my research, I've come across a beautiful and inspiring quote from Leslie T. Chang, an author hoping to show how the world can change for the better. The past has been there all along, reminding us. This time, maybe, hopefully, against all odds, we will get it right.